Hey guys, I'm Tom the Tech Chap, and this is the brand new Acer Swift 5. So the Swift 5, on the face of it, looks like a fairly unassuming, reasonably smart looking 14-inch laptop. But then you pick it up and you think there's something wrong. You think the battery's missing, or it's a prototype, because it is ridiculously light. The Swift 5 weighs just 970 grams, which means for some reason I've got a 14-inch laptop in my hand and I feel like I can just twirl it between my fingers. It's ridiculous. It weighs about the same as the 12-inch MacBook, and it's around 400 grams lighter than the 2017 Swift 5. But there's quite a lot else that the Swift 5 offers, including quite a smart design. It's made of magnesium alloy. I've got it in this sort of darkish blue color, although it also comes in gold. It's got a 14-inch Full HD IPS touchscreen, which doesn't flip all the way back, unlike the hinge would suggest. It goes to about like 190 degrees for some reason. So it's a traditional clamshell, not a 2-in-1. And also it's packing the latest 8th generation processors, which is a big upgrade from last year. It means we get quad-core chips in these super thin and light Ultrabooks. Now the entry-level model starts at £900 or $1,000, and that gets you an i5 8250U, 8 gigs of RAM and 256 gigs of storage. Or you can pay a couple of hundred more. This is £1,100 or around $1,300, which gets you an i7 8550U, 16 gigs of RAM and 512 gigabytes of storage. So it's got some strong competition from the likes of the Dell XPS 13, the new HP Spectre, the Asus ZenBook 3 Deluxe, although generally for similar specs they are around £100 to £200 more. So Acer's Ultrabook lineup includes the Swift 3, which starts at around $700, the Swift 5, which we've got here, which is around $900 starting from, and then of course we've got the Swift 7, which was introduced at CES and is in fact the world's thinnest laptop. This does not claim to be the world's thinnest laptop, at around 15mm thick compared to just 9mm on the Swift 7, but this is incredibly light, and also it means there's room for a good selection of ports. So I guess the only thing we're really missing is an SD card reader, but aside from that, it ticks all the boxes for I/O. And that USB-C port makes it a little bit more future-proof, and you can use any number of adapters that support it. So it's not the flashiest or the most premium, but it's a smart looking laptop, and I don't think anyone who bought this will be disappointed. But now let's move on to that screen. It's a 14-inch Full HD IPS touchscreen. The screen overall is pretty good. I don't really have any major complaints, although it's not the brightest at around 260 nits, and it's not the most color accurate. It covers about 90% of the sRGB color gamut, but only about 66 of the Adobe RGB gamut. To the average person, that's absolutely fine. It looks good, but probably not the most accurate if you want to edit video or photos on it. But with a 1500:1 contrast ratio and this IPS panel, which means you get good viewing angles, overall the Swift 5 screen is really nice. In terms of performance, well, it's your average Ultrabook really. The 8th gen chips do make a big difference. As I say, they are now quad-core rather than dual-core, so in terms of multitasking and processor-intensive tasks, it is a lot faster. Basically, it'll do light to medium tasks, so full HD video editing is decent, you can do a little bit of light photo editing, ideal for browsing the web, office work, student work, that sort of stuff. This is an Ultrabook after all. It's not supposed to be doing lots of heavy lifting and really power-intensive tasks. And it's not really meant for gaming either. The graphics haven't really been improved that much compared to last year's chips. It's more the processor that's been upgraded. So you can just about get away with a playable frame rate with medium graphics if you lower the resolution to 720p. And surprisingly, the SSD, the storage, isn't that fast either. Whether you'll notice that difference, I'm not really sure. It's still a lot faster than a traditional hard drive. I'm genuinely impressed by the quality of the webcam on the Swift 5, although unfortunately it doesn't support Windows Hello, so you can't unlock the laptop with your face, although it does have a fingerprint reader on the palm rest, and that does support Windows Hello. As for the keyboard and the touchpad, on the whole, it's pretty good. But I do have one complaint I'll get to in a second. First of all, the keyboard, I like typing on it. It's fully backlit, the keys are quite responsive, and there's a nice clack to them. But I do have one problem with the keyboard, and I hope it's just this particular model I've got here and it's not affecting other ones. But that's the spacebar. Hopefully you can see that, fairly responsive, it works well. But then as I move to the edge of the spacebar, it only sort of registers every third one maybe. So when I'm touch typing and if my thumb isn't quite over the center of the keyboard, I'm often finding that I'm not typing the spaces, which is actually getting quite frustrating, and I think I would probably return this model because of that issue. But I have read a few other reviews of this laptop, no one else has mentioned it, so I'm hoping it is just an issue with this particular one, so I wouldn't worry about it too much. The bigger issue I have with the Swift 5, you might be able to hear it, is the fan noise, which even if you're doing almost nothing at all, whether you're just on the desktop or you're browsing Chrome or even Edge, pretty much anything, there's a constant whine and whir from the fan. So while it's not a deal breaker, the fan noise is one of my biggest problems with the Swift 5. And finally, in terms of battery life, well, things aren't that good either actually. Acer quote 8 hours, but really, I think you're looking at about 5.5 to 6. 1 hour of YouTube with 75% brightness and battery saver mode on used about 14% of the batteries. So we're looking at almost 6 hours of video playback, which is decent, which is fine, but a little bit disappointing given the fact that we've got the latest 8th gen processors. And the reason behind the so-so battery is basically Acer has just made the batteries smaller in the Swift 5. Last year's one had a 54 watt hour battery. This one's got just a 36 watt hour battery, so it's a lot smaller, but it does seem a bit like form over function. They've compromised on battery life in order to reduce the weight and maybe the thickness as well. So the battery life isn't bad, it's just average, and you may struggle to get through a full working day with it. So that's the Acer Swift 5. The good points are it's incredibly lightweight, 970 grams. There's nothing out there this size that feels as light as this. You can throw this in your backpack, you're barely going to know it's there. It's got a really smart looking design, great selection of ports, Windows Hello fingerprint reader, surprisingly good webcam, a really responsive Microsoft Precision touchpad, and the keyboard is decent, assuming you don't have the same issue with the spacebar that I do. Downsides are a sometimes inconsistent touchscreen. The spacebar is giving me a little bit of trouble on this one, but hopefully it is just this one. The SSD storage isn't the fastest compared to some of the laptops. The battery life is quite average and a little bit disappointing given the 8th gen chip inside. And of course that almost constant fan noise, which is distracting. And while not a deal breaker, does take away a little bit from what is otherwise a great all-rounder laptop, and one I would still recommend despite its flaws. So if you fancy yourself the Swift 5 or you want to find out more, I've put links in the description below so you can go and check those out. Let me know what you make of this in the comments below, and also what you look for when you're buying a new laptop. Thank you very much for watching, guys. If you want to see more videos on laptops like this, click that like and subscribe button below, and I'll see you next time right here on the Tech Chap. Thanks for watching.